So do you want to go ahead and give us a 3, 2, 1, or are we recording now and we'll let it?
We're already recording.
Okay.
You've recorded the Stone Man Willie.
I'll save it for the B-reel, or we'll just keep it on.
Just open with Stone Man. And people will be like, I don't.
What? Is this a branch?
So, in Branch Riders, there's this character meet named Stone Man Willie.
Develop a game now based on this.
Oh, absolutely. I will hook you up with all the research you need.
Yeah.
So, welcome everyone to the Branch Riders RPG panel. We will introduce ourselves on the panel momentarily, but just a kind of a brief, you'll notice that we're not doing a PowerPoint presentation, and we've previously done a lot of these panels before at other Save Against Spheres, as well as during Onyx Path Virtual Con and other events, talking about the upcoming system. So we'll give you a little bit of advanced notice about that. But our goal today is, one, to sell you on the game, because it's an awesome game, but also to kind of sell you on what we initially thought was going to be a very tough sell, right? About the idea of, okay, so you're writing a therapy game. That means that like 80% of the people who buy RPGs aren't going to buy it because they don't need no therapy in their RPG, right? That's not what the T stands for. But so what, right? Tabletop. Right. It'll be like triple T RPG, therapeutic tabletop role-playing game. Yeah!
It's things that no one has ever said, Jeff.
Except me
you.
And the council of swaddling elves that live in my head.
Yeah. Stone Man Willie.
Right, like Stone Man Willie.
Stone Man Willie.
So we have the leitmotif for our panel, and we must go and put the Stone Man Willie into Branch Riders.
Oh yeah, you can have Stone Man.
We're obligated. Yeah. But we wanted to talk in this panel, specifically to the crowd assembled, about how we baked the therapy in to the system. So on the surface, unless you're looking for it, it's not glaring, slapping you in the face. That was by design and intention. And we wanted to talk about that and also gain some questions, and of course, invite you multiple times during the panel about the fact that there are many sessions. If you are joining us for the convention games portion over at the Expo Hall this weekend, there are at least 6 sections, 5 now because one's already full. 2 of them are full, 4, they're going fast, folks, of Branch Riders. So you can go ahead and play test the system and to see what it's all about.
Really a demo at this point.
Yeah.
It's playtest implies a lot will change.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah.
You're not listening to anybody at this point, are you?
It's
finished!
If we get a bunch of feedback over and over again, we'll listen to that.
Yeah, right.
One-offs are like, thank you so much for your thoughts, but this is what it's.
Sorry.
This is 95% of what's.
So, nobody. So why don't we go ahead and intro the panel? So we'll start. Dixie.
I was going to say what's great about Jack is that he did my job for me, so I'm just sitting here. I'm Dixie. I'm introducing and moderating this panel, technically. I work at Onyx Path Publishing as a full-time freelancer. I've done a lot of editing, a lot of writing, and I'm doing art direction, art layout stuff. So it's super fun. And I've been doing Save Against Spheres since 2019. Was the first one? Yes. So I am a big fan of Branch Riders. I've been following it for several years now, and ever since we picked it up, I'm very excited to see it get published. So.
My name is Rich Thomas. I'm the founder of Onyx Path Publishing. I've been involved with this night convention for
every single year.
Quite a while.
Onyx Path is one of 2 companies, Anthropos, Calvin Johns, you may have sat in on his panel, and Onyx and Rich, the only 2 entities who have supported every single Save Against Spheres since the first one, 13 years ago. Yeah. He's like, and that ends now.
I just want to announce a flip at the table.
And part of what we've always been discussing is how can we work with Bodhana to create this game that would be useful, helpful, and would be created by professionals. And I always say that the therapeutic aspects of it, and the way you think to use this, is baked in. It's not something that's overt. It's hardwired into, because you're making it, but you know this stuff.
Yeah.
There's other people, other game designers out there who will think they're doing something therapeutic and stick it into a game and tell you this will be therapeutic, and they don't really
Hot
know.
off the presses.
They don't really know what they're talking about. Jack and the crew do.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, is one of the great joys of working with these folks. Plus, the fact, out of the park, just like the first, let's do an RPG. Let's put on a show, guys. Fantastic. It's a fantastically written book, and so many great ideas from the entire team. Dave as well, of course. So much coming out of that very imaginative brain that you did. Just absolutely fantastic. So it is a great game with the underpinnings, with the things of ways that you can use this to have therapeutic help occur without being. And on page 14, look up the rules for this.
Yeah. These are the rules for a therapeutic social engagement.
No.
This is really exciting though, because for most of our panels on branch writers, we're talking to gamers, not therapists. So usually we're just sitting here like, don't use it to do therapy on your friends. Don't use it for therapy. Don't do it. And this is the first panel where we're able to be like, yes, do it. Here's how you do it. It's
You're
cool.
the people. You're the horses today.
Nice. So
So I'm of course Jack Birkenstock, Executive Director of Bodhana, one of its founders. I'm also non-licensed. I'm a master's level clinician who's been in the field since 1997. I currently run groups with Bodhana. I also have 26 years in the field working with persons with sexually problematic behavior, work with kids, teens, adults, neurodivergent, neurotypical, people with ID as well. I've done a lot of work in the field, and I've been an avid gamer since the age of 12. So that be me, child's play, as it were.
Doug Hagler. I'm on the board of the Bodhana Group and have been for around 6 years, 7 years,
A little more than that.
maybe a little more. And I come to this as primarily a writer, game designer, editor. Those are the skills that I apply to branch writers. I've also absorbed a lot of information about therapeutic use, as being part of the Bodhana Group for the past years. And I sort of saw part of my job in this was to make it so that if we didn't tell you the game was for therapeutic use, you wouldn't know.
yep.
Yeah.
That was like one of my goals, is to just make it.
So you're the cover makeup.
Well, it's sort of like, so my priority was this has to be a fun, cool game that's fun, that anybody could play, and like,
cool.
that could, and also cool, that would sit on the shelf next to any other game you could name, and and fit there.
Yeah. When also the world's making sense, because we're going to talk a lot about the
world making sense.
But all right.
It took some work.
I'm Bonnie Johnson. You may also hear some people calling me Amaya. I'm on the creative team, I'm on the creative team and the mechanics team for the game. I'm not a therapist or anything, but I've been here pretty much since the beginning of making the game.
Very much since the beginning.
And
The first branch writers meeting was in your family, was in the
It was
basement.
in your basement. Yeah. It was in your house.
Yeah.
I've never been on anything like this before, so I don't know how much I'm going to have to contribute, but I'm here.
All right. So Bonnie's first panel.
It's always fun.
Yes.
For the panel.
So where do we start, Dixie? So I don't.
I can just sit quietly if you want to know.
No. Please
You
take
bring the
control.
best out of us. It's happened so many times before.
Well, I think we should probably start with just what is branch writers.
Oh, I
Like a good jumping off point. So if you want to talk a little bit about the game and the setting and the kind of basics of it.
Okay. So let's take. I will leave that to creative. You want to? How do you summarize branch writers, Bonnie?
You can start off.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
So, Branch Riders is a role-playing game where you play the part of a branch rider who is kind of like a heroic special operative that travels to 8 different realms from your home base in the Nexus and your job is to basically solve problems in those realms that no one else can solve. Because there's this force in the realms called blight, and you as a branch rider are able to perceive it when other people can't. And so you're also able to try to solve problems the blight is causing or exacerbating in the realms when literally it's just you. If you don't fix this, nobody can. It'll keep getting worse. And so each of the 8 realms that we have in kind of the basic game, I guess, there's rules to create more realms, there's ideas for more realms. We have 8 to start. And each of the 8 realms exemplifies a different genre. Because one of the things we observed in therapeutic use is that a lot of it kind of assumes, oh, it's D&D. And like, what if a person doesn't like fantasy? What if a person doesn't want, what if for some reason you don't want to have any violence in your game, right? Because if you look at a D&D character sheet, it's 2/3 violence.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have options of
combat oriented.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, which is totally fine. I mean, I'm in D&D every week. But what if you didn't want to do that? So we wanted to have different genres represented. So if someone says, I love sci-fi, they'd be, okay, cool, there's a realm, you can focus on that if you want. And also to have a design that had multiple ways to solve these problems the blight is creating. So you can do it with loads of violence, or none, or problem solving, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so through a mixture of those 2 desires, we came up with the 8 realms.
Now initially, and Doug could probably speak a little bit more to this, and so originally we were going to make these very ham-fisted, right? Because it was going to be, well, we got to make sure the therapy's in there and people know the therapy. So initially, and this is still the case, but it's much, much, much less glaring, right? It's in there. Jolly, it's in there.
Oh no.
So yeah, old commercial references.
It has begun.
I shouldn't have let them sit next to each other.
It happens all the time.
Dixie, you can't stop them. There's no, they'll just talk across.
I know.
So-
I've been in many meetings.
So the 8 realms that Doug was talking about, these are 8 distinct realms that each have their own genre convention. But these genre conventions are added to by a therapeutic concept that in some of ways is a twist on the genre or adds an additional element that will make it compelling for storytelling, but also very organic goal inclusion work. For example, there is a superhero realm. We call it the Heights because of all the tall high-rises that are there. And in this world, everyone, or as far as you know everyone, has a superpower. Now, not everyone has laser beams and strong muscles or whatever. Maybe one person's superpower, I gotta use it, is you can use a flathead screwdriver and it never slips out of the groove. Right? Not very useful against Thanos, but great if you work at IKEA, right?
IKEA only has Allen wrenches.
Oh, crap.
That's really idea.
Nice. So, within this, the therapeutic convention of the Heights is social skills. Now, you may ask, why the hell are you building social capacities in superheroes? Well, raise your hand if you've ever seen the movie Mystery Men. Okay? Captain Amazing, right? He looks like a NASCAR driver. So we decided to add a corporate element to our area. Like everybody has a superpower. You got to market it somehow.
Sponsors.
Yeah, you got to have sponsors and companies that develop your image. Wait a minute, develop your image. Like maybe your expressive identity. Maybe the way that you're communicating who you are, what you represent. Wait a minute, we said everybody has powers, but we also said maybe everybody has powers. How are powers decided? Is it genetic, if you go on a typical rant, or is it, well, only the privileged have the ability to send their kids to school? Or maybe it's a bloodline thing, so it's only legacies are superheroes. We give you a starter setting, like we said, but what you do with it, jokingly, I say, you've already bought the book. I'm not waiting outside your house to police the way you're playing it. So make the game, make the world yours. But think of the stories that you can tell. Oh, did we fail to mention one other aspect of the Heights?
This is Jack's favorite, yeah.
This is my favorite.
Yeah.
So one of the villains.
One of 2 favorites,
One
that
of-
and mashups.
Yes.
Those are going to come up later.
Yeah, that's right. So Exo is a supervillain. And one day he was getting the snot beat out of him by his nemesis, the Bull. And as the Bull was beating him senseless, all of a sudden the Bull stopped. And Exo's like, okay, I thought I was dead. What's up? And he looks over and there's a little fanboy kid with a Bull t-shirt. and a mask on his face and his tears in his eyes. And the bull stops because of his fan. And Exo smiled. And he said, he cares what these people think. Oh. How odd, but beneficial. So he developed Capebook. It's a social media app that tracks the popularity of heroes and villains. Everything you do within the Heights is posted for everybody to see, and you get likes whether you're a villain or whether you're a hero. So Capebook was created as a way to control the heroes so villains could villain. But it has other implications. Some people with powers, we have one, I believe Mimic, I think is her name. She's a social media influencer, part of the Winfluencers, who can be in multiple locations at once because she has the duplication power. So you see how there's so much. And again, I'm just going to kind of ask a question out to the group because I want this to be less of a we're barking information to you, but a what do you think?
Yeah.
What's some potential goal work that some of the professionals in the room see that might be like, what kind of story do you think you could tell in a world, just that one realm that we discussed? Because remember, there's 7 more playgrounds to play in here. What do you think? Mike?
Sibling or parental conflicts, you said legacy, and that's the first thing that my brother sucks, or mom's always yelling at me.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe you have a legacy hero who didn't get powers and they had to go to mischievous ends to get themselves, maybe they aligned with a villain so they get powers to prove themselves to their family. So now we're maybe talking about family systems therapy work, right? Uh-huh.
I was thinking like if
Sorry.
they're looking at Capebook and they have to do what is popular versus what is right, or how much of itself they're selling out, or making decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
wow. Oh,
That was you.
it's you.
Capebook as this sort of stand-in for social media. This idea that there could be a conflict between how you are represented on Capebook versus how you feel or identify in the real world, and having to actually actively manage those dual identities
Yep.
and what that feels like.
Yeah, and it's a way to represent it, and that's only one realm, right? Do we want to do another realm?
Yeah.
You think it's What do you think? What's
Or we go to questions, or whatever you want to do. Yeah.
Borderland? I think that's another compelling one
Sure.
because it also brings a it's basically Borderland, which is an Old West, not themed on the historical Old West. We're very, very, very direct about. No, don't do that. We also have the Burrows, which is a noir setting. We have the Chain, which is a steampunk realm. We have the Crags, which is a fantasy realm. We have the Party, which is a young adult dystopian fiction. We have the Rails, which is a post-apocalyptic future. Or what's our favorite?
Please, it's Red Bull presents The Last of Us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the setting.
Yeah, and then the Terminal. Which is a science fiction setting. Now, all of those have their own skill building conventions. So we're going to tell you about one more because we want to leave a little bit to be discovered. The Borderland, or Old West, is partnered with
Creativity and artistic expression. That's
now
right.
you.
And all based on one pun.
What was the pun?
What was the pun?
Quick draw.
Oh,
Yeah. Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all based on quick draw.
Quick draw.
That was
and,
early. That
and
was in the
Dave's
early.
love of Old West.
Yep.
Because that was one of Dave's. Just so you know, and are you okay with me?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Dave Johnson is Bonnie's father, or was Bonnie's father. Dave is with us from the beginning of it. Unfortunately, Dave had a degenerative heart condition that after 2 transplants, he was not able to maintain and survive through, especially after a COVID bout. So we sadly lost Dave almost
May of 2022.
Yeah. So Dave is very much actually with one of the Dave will very much be in the fabric of the entire book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but that kind of
Blame
grew
that
out.
pun on him.
What's that?
I blame the pun on him.
I would
don't know
not
if they
put it
did
past.
but
I
seems-
wouldn't put it
it
past
seems
him.
like-
Wouldn't put it past him. But and actually, you have a great way of describing why the Borderlands is so compelling with the psychoactive.
Oh, so one of the things that I ended up doing is the forms the realms originally took, they very much wore their therapeutic theme on their sleeve.
Like it was like, this is the realm of creativity and everyone wants to be creative all the time. And so I kind of went through all the realms and I was like, why? Right? Why? Because it was kind of arbitrary. And so I went through the realms and I thought about, like, why would you have a place where everyone feels like creativity is really important, right? So it has to be related to survival somehow. Because people, the highest importance is what gets me through my life. And so I thought, what would require creativity to survive? And I got this idea from a book series. But basically, the borderland is psychoactive. So the world responds to your thoughts. The world responds to your dreams. You could like go to sleep, have a nightmare, wake up, being strangled by your nightmare. And so what happened was, in order to survive, people had to have a lot of control over their imagination. They had to have a trained artistic imagination to be able to control what they think of and how they think about things. And then as a result of that, they create a bunch of beauty. And there's a bunch of art, and art is a focus for most people in the borderlands.
Well,
but it's like a survival thing.
Right, but additionally, now we can replace that sense of colonialism with the open expansion of the frontier, that now the frontier is an open canvas that needs the creativity to fill that void. So we're able to kind of take and repurpose that as an idea.
And it's wild and dangerous.
It's the border between dreams and reality as well.
Right, yeah, yep. Yeah. It could be a metaphor for that, and it's wilderness and it's dangerous, not because there are people of another culture who already live there, but because it actually will, if you're not disciplined about how you imagine things, it will actually kill you, or you'll get lost forever, or you know.
Yeah, and we have very cool creative things built in. Like again, we had said that there's a starter setting with each realm, which includes notable events, locations, people. So it's enough to get you started, right? Also, we have story starters within that array. So we have like 8 sample scenarios that you could just go, ooh, that grabs me. Let me go ahead and do that thing. And each realm also contains blights that are specific to that realm. And we'll talk about blights in a mo.
They're like monsters.
Yeah, pretty much. So in the Borderland, there's the Gorge. It's Artisan Bluff is the town, and there is the Gorge. And the Gorge is where artists go, that's crap. And they throw all their old drawings and paintings and sculptures and sketches. That's kind of dangerous. Why did you throw me away? What's wrong with me that you didn't want me? Hey, I'm going to get some other drawings you threw. How many drawings do artists do of trying to draw the same thing? You imagine a clone army of, no, your face isn't right. What? Right? Then we also have brush slingers and chisel slingers, so we have, like you said, quick draw, right? But we also can talk about the idea of perfection and pressure that artists feel. It's either perfect or it's garbage. And we see this a lot when we work with a lot of young people. I can't necessarily call it performance anxiety, but it's kind of related to that, right? That, I'm going to spend forever trying and planning because it has to be perfect. It's also kind of a zone of kind of some quick action, right? So we then mix the traditional with Rococo style architecture, so it's kind of like Fancy Paris meets, the Dead Gulch, Nevada, or wherever. So thinking of that, if we're also talking then about like inspiration and where we create from, any thoughts again from the room? Any ideas that realm sparks that you might be able to turn into a storyline?
Ideas or questions, either.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to say I'm not a professional. I'm here as a person with mental illness. And when I hear about the Borderlands, I think about the fact that sometimes when I have psychosis, I take 2 and 2 and I add them together and I get 16. And I think that would be an interesting realm in which to think about how to discipline the mind to find reality and stay anchored there.
That's a good point.
Awesome. It's a great example.
I'm thinking maybe people who are starting to show early signs of obsessive compulsive disorder, where the obsessions are what's starting, and I'm thinking about myself as a middle schooler. If my homework wasn't perfect, it got torn up. That would serve a really excellent purpose. I would hate for all my homework to come back.
Right? The dog did not eat it.
I just just keep thinking about like hundreds of like hands that I've drawn that I ever raised.
Right?
It's like,
Imagine like them crawling up out of the gorge.
I think it's worse if the dog did eat it, because then it's coming back in scraps.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow, that took a dark turn.
I was just going to say that there's an interesting dynamic too, in the sense that if your imagination is too disciplined or too focused, what it means to see the world that you want to see rather than the world that's there. And sort of having a kind of being able to set something up where, you know, someone has to kind of confront that kind of bias and that kind of, you know, tendency, but also the idea that there's an artifact or an object or a place that people collectively imagine as one thing or another, which again shapes that space.
Yeah.
So, you know, like kind of playing with this thing of like, how do we feel about it? Can we change perception around something in order to change the nature of what it is?
One of the cool things about the Borderlands for me and thinking about it is that there's a starting town, and there's a town there because everyone there believes there's a town there.
Right.
Right? And that's true of any community. Like a community exists because everyone participating in it believes it exists.
Hey, we found where York is supposed to be.
Yeah, right. And imagines it as existing.
Right.
And then the way people collectively imagine that place could change the place over time. And that's a way to just kind of shine a light on how that works in everyday life. That a relationship or a community exists because you believe it's there.
Yeah.
And you imagine things about it, but what happens when you're imagining different things? Or when that comes into conflict? It's a way of just taking that and making it physical as a way to kind of address it in a different way.
An opportunity to discuss when in real world people are having that same problem.
Right.
How can we
I don't see it that
find
way.
a middle zone?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
For me, when I think about it, like I'm also a mentally ill person who is not a professional therapist, but I have seen many of them. And one thing that I think of when I hear the Borderlands is about having intrusive thoughts, because I have lots of them. I'm one of those people who, if I'm driving over a bridge, my brain's like, you should go off the bridge. Go, just go. Yeah. And like thinking about like a way to actually fight those is really interesting because they're very annoying when they happen.
What was it? I missed that.
Having intrusive thoughts.
Intrusive thoughts. Okay.
Yeah, like thoughts that I would never act on, but that definitely just pop into my head. Like,
shut up.
You should stab your hand with a knife you're holding. No, I shouldn't. Why?
I'm in the top room at a hotel in the 20th floor. I should jump off of this.
Yeah.
No.
I don't intend to.
But your brain wants you to for a second.
Yep.
You're like, why, brain? Stop it.
So Sarah, your hand was up, and then
sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking along a similar line of perfectionism, being able to take something that's not perfect and identify the beauty in it anyway. Like for someone who has a lot of negative self-talk, being able to practice saying good things about yourself in the form of saying good things about a piece of art that wasn't perfect.
Yeah, what's your relationship with something that's unfinished or imperfect? If you're throwing it in the gorge, that'll cause a problem. So what do you do instead?
Wow.
And I saw him.
Sorry, your thought when you mentioned intrusive thoughts made me think about like some of the kids I work with who have like some maybe not intrusive thoughts, but like some dark thoughts. Or,
Yes.
And like if you can't control your imagination, the things pop up. Like how does that make you feel? How exposed? How vulnerable? In this realm where everything that they can imagine and create comes to life. Like finding people who maybe understand, maybe don't judge you for having those thoughts or those ideas.
Because everyone does.
Yeah, having everybody be able to see your like kind of worst imaginations is a really vulnerable thing.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a way to creatively do like the fear of being outed.
Yeah.
Right? Or that's what this town thinks of me? Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Or like having other people see the way you think about yourself.
Yes. Oh my gosh, like, thought balloons.
I'm like, as a person with ADHD, and I'm probably on the autism spectrum, we're working on the diagnosis. But like, I've been masking my entire life. And so having other people see me the way I actually think of myself versus the way I present myself is kind of scary. Because, like, it's not...
You took all this time and effort to
put
this thing in front of you.
To be able to...
I drew the portrait. No!
Yeah. That is fascinating.
And I like that there's a dial that you can set.
Right.
Like, it isn't that everyone's inner life is painted around them all the time, right? If you're in the center of town, things are pretty controlled.
Yeah.
That's because you're surrounded by people with strong imaginations who all agree there's a town. It's kind of like, how far into the wilderness do you go before you start like, oh, this is what's inside me.
Yeah. And
so you can engage with that all the way, or if you want, you can be not at all, be a cool cowboy and have, paint duels. Like, that's also fun.
Right, and don't worry, we do know, hand up. And another thing to bear in mind is that when we had said about the Blight earlier, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but the Blight isn't just scary monster beat up, right? The Blight is a force. It's an energy. So maybe the Blight loves to create chaos. Because remember those 8 realms we talked about, that we're talking about? Yeah, they're all separated. You can't walk out of the borderland and walk into the superhero, because it's dangerous. Because the Blight would have taken over everything until we contained the realms. We're not sure if that was the right choice. No, it was the right choice.
Definitely the right choice.
Definitely the right
Do not
choice
question
to
it.
separate these realms.
No asterisk.
But what about people that are in the different... No, it's the right choice. It's the way it has to be. Otherwise, the curtain is torn, and the Blight takes over everything.
Hey, guys, people are disappearing out of this one reality.
No. That's collateral damage. It's all right.
Quiet you.
Just put in a mission report.
Yeah, exactly. We'll look at that later.
And so one of the things...
So there's even a backstory beyond all these worlds.
Yeah, it's like the meta thing for the game that's in there but not dealt with directly in most of it, is that the realms are separate and you just kind of trust that they're supposed to be, and that was important to do. It was done generations before you. Your job is to go in there and fix problems. But then there's also... What's going on behind that is like... who did that? Why did they do it? Was it a good idea? Is there a better way to manage the Blight? That's all there too. Right. Do we have the right to do this? Yeah. And then we have some antagonists who are like, no, we don't have the right to do this.
Yeah. And we're going to retired branch riders who break from the code and go rogue.
Yeah. I think here then.
Yeah, you were next, then over. Yep. Wow. Holy crap, this is great.
I love this idea of like this world that's like co-constructed and whatnot. And I was like thinking about it from like a therapeutic perspective and like doing groups of teens especially. It's pretty darn rare that I can get all of them on the same page on any one thing, unless it's something they all just like uniformly hate, generally speaking. So like when I imagine this world, it's truly just like you think it exists. Like oftentimes we have thoughts really quickly, right? Like to speak for the ADHD people in the room, perhaps to some degree, like just jumping from one to the next, 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 right? So I'm wondering like how close to like ever evolving this world would have to be for that to exist. And then the second thing with that I'm kind of like this just stewing here is thinking about this like idea of perceptions and everything else, and like what does one person see as beautiful versus not, and how that might change over time. And then like in terms of like specific therapeutic applications, like I work with quite a few youth that are in the foster care system and whatnot.
Gotcha.
And so like not just this idea of like getting thrown over to the gap, but like how many things do we just think about and then forget 5 minutes later? Right? And yet, then think about comparing to like a foster youth. How many of them feel like, they've gotten forgotten in one way?
Oh yeah, we're 25 to 30 foster homes in 5 years, which happens.
You live out of a garbage bag that you take from house to house. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So I love it. I love it. But like, is there is it like an ever evolving place then, or is it a place that does maintain consistency and then?
Up to you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's off that's off what we present. We present this is what it's like in this moment,
day zero.
Sure.
And then where you take it is knock yourself out.
And we also provide in one of the appendices, we have sample questions. So if you want to make the world your own, it's like Doug said, dials. They're knobs that you can tweak.
Sure.
Maybe in your heights. No, not everybody gets powers. Just the rich get powers. Why? Because maybe you want to talk about isms or systemic issues, right? Maybe it's only women that get powers. You want to talk about gender roles, stereotypes, fluidity? Sure. It's your pearl. Shine it how you want, right?
Well, the other thing that I was wondering, right? So you mentioned like in the superhero world, there's this like established villain who created like the Kate book and all that. I'm wondering, does each world contain like its own very much established conflict within? And if so, I'm kind of trying to figure out what exactly that would look like then for this like artistic world of Borderland.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's pretty much every world has some sort of conflict built into the starter setting that we've made. For the Borderlands, there is this kind of two things, actually. You one have the Gorge that was mentioned earlier that the Blight takes advantage of to kind of torment the artists in the Borderlands. And then secondarily, you have this group called ArtCo, which I'm losing my words right now. So I might need somebody to take over.
Their company.
You're doing great,
They're kind of an art training company and conglomerate that kind of like, they're standardizing artistic expression. They're sort of like, take this course, you'll learn to paint in this way, and then...
This way only.
Right, this way only.
Draw Timmy the Turtle in 10 easy lessons.
Right. It's like this horrible mail order drawing lessons.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's to get the paintings that you put over your sofa in your middle-class house.
And so they're kind of
they're very much like they're very much advertise themselves as like learn quick, make it uniform, make money, make publicity, go advertise us to get more people into it. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. The villains are paint by number people.
The fastest brush in the West could very well be one of these graduates.
Right.
So that's why they're so fast. And you get a real artist that comes up, and outdraws them.
Yeah. Yep. So Sarah, your hand was up too.
You love that pun.
Yeah.
If you just spin so many things off of it.
Oh, just a quick question. So you said that the branches are inaccessible between each other, except for the branch riders. Right. Are the branches aware of the existence of each other?
No. And as a branch rider, you must never let them be aware.
Take
no one can know you're a branch rider.
Leave only footprints.
No one can know there are other realms, or else things start to go real bad.
And no one is supposed to know that the Blight exists, but one of the realms is aware of it in some form.
Yeah, they've weaponized it, in fact.
Yeah, we take rules and then we break them in some
What do
other
we
realms.
mean? You'll have to read more to find out. Or join the Onyx Path Discord server.
Yeah.
Or the Branch Riders channel.
So the Branch Rider is the client in this, or have I misconstrued?
Yes.
Okay.
The Branch Rider is the protagonist in the RPG. They're the character.
Yeah, so generally your clients will be playing Branch Riders.
Yep.
Though they are part of at least standard in the setting, a larger Branch Riders organization.
Actually, what do you think, Dixie? Moving from to mechanics, describe a little bit how they do and what they do.
Yeah.
So as a branch rider, you come from one of the 8 realms, and it's kind of like, everything. I think we talked about this in another panel. The whole not big bar and steel, but everything is kind of homage-y, right? Mm-hmm. So, like Jedi, when you're on a branch rider and you're out on a mission, it's like, hey, there's something special about that kid. They saw the Blight. They have the gift. They have the sight, right? So that's how branch riders get recruited. Now, one of the cool things is, I'll describe that, and then we can kind of, I guess, go back and talk about the mechanics. So each branch rider comes with a gift. Now, the gift is kind of like our superpowers, our spells, etc. And these are also thematically flavored to the realm. So it's a power that's indicative of that genre, that is like a special ability that ties you to your place of origin. So it gives a little bit more flavor to the character. You're so good at picking these. For an example, what's it? We were having a lot of. What do you think?
We talked about the Borderlands.
Yeah.
So one of the gifts is I think it's the storyteller. I think is just the name of it.
Storyteller.
So basically, when you spin a yarn, when you tell a story, you can actually create illusory images of what you're describing around you. You can use this just as a way to do a cool story, do a cool performance, or you could tell a story about a scene and then sneak away and let the scene run to distract people while you're doing something else. Like, you can use this a lot of different ways. Yeah. But your gift is kind of what you carry with you from your home as you go as a fish out of water to these other realms and try to find a way to use your home gift to solve problems in a completely different situation. Yeah. Like, if you're like a prospector who's a great storyteller, and now you're being chased by spider tanks in the sci-fi setting, what are you going to do with that? Like, there's
story does not compute.
Right. Like the first time you go to a new realm, there's that kind of fish out of water story that can be fun. And then as you go repeatedly to different realms, you might develop relationship like, oh, I hate this one, I like this one. There are things that I've learned, whereas someone else in your team might be a native from that realm, so they have more information for this mission, but then the next time you might go to your home realm and then they're a fish out of water.
And then originally you can only utilize gifts from your home realm, but once you get more exposure to other realms, you can adapt. Like, wow, like Doug said, I really like this realm, so you're kind of picking up a gift. So it also is a way to expand the character and their skill set. So, wow,
and further emphasizes the uniqueness of the branch riders, because they're capable of pulling from places that they weren't born in.
But also it shows growth as a person, which is part of it.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of the therapeutic aspect.
Right.
What we talked about is like it's all about
use the tools,
learning and growing and using the tools. Yeah.
I went to a strange place. I got to know that place, and now something of that place is in me. Is the basic kind of idea. Or I might go to a strange place. I didn't learn a lot, or I didn't like it, so nothing from that place comes with me.
Maybe I want to avoid it.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not taking that gift. That place is terrible.
Yeah, that's where the mission is.
One of my favorites was a playtester of mine came up with a sort of like mid-campaign character that had gotten trapped in one of the realms known as the Crags and absolutely hated it there. But by the time they got out, they had to learn how to survive in that realm, and now had this inherent ability that had kind of grown in them that they despised because it was a reminder of their time trapped in that realm.
It's really fascinating
That's awesome.
how all three of these descriptions are different kinds of therapy I've been to.
Right?
I've been a terrible therapist where I'm like, I hate this, I hate you, I don't want to learn anything.
How interesting that would be the case.
Almost like it's baked into the fabric of what
thousands of hours of work later.
That's fascinating to me that like you were able to do that, because that is a narratively interesting thing that if I didn't know the context, I would just think, oh, what an interesting story, like or whatever. But like as somebody who once again has been to a lot of therapy.
Same.
It's like oh, like I've also done that. I definitely put in the work and been like, I hate this, but I learned something, and I hate that I learned it. Now I have to apply it in my everyday life and be well adjusted.
Don't worry about that.
Oh no, well adjusted.
Not well adjusted.
So I guess the next logical step, we kind of prefaced this a little bit earlier, is how the heck does the system work, right? So we did a couple of changes. Again, not just like we didn't want it to be strength, intelligence, dexterity, wisdom, constitution, charisma, right? I really don't mind D&D. I'm sorry. People have seen me on multiple panels.
Like, everyone's seen it. So
damn, Jack.
It's an example of,
but we made the choice that for our attributes, we decided to call them approaches. Because we wanted to focus in a therapeutic game, but also from a role-playing context. To me, why you are doing what you are doing, what is your approach to solve the problem, is more compelling than how are you hitting it, right? So we have 5 approaches. They are knowledgeable, observant, forceful, social, and weird.
Creative.
Oh, creative. I'm sorry. Weird is the skill. Weird is the skill. Yeah.
We'll get to weird later.
It's weird, but
for me, it's always weird. Yeah, creative, not weird.
Jack just rolls weird and everything.
That's naturally.
But you see that even a lot of those, if I'm being forced, what's that? Sure. Observant, knowledgeable, social, forceful, creative. Most of them are obvious, right? But see that if I'm being social, it doesn't mean I have to be nice about it. Or you could say that if I'm yelling at someone or breaking someone down, that could also be forceful. So there's a lot of player interpretation, which is great to get that window into the client. How are they describing what their motivation is, right? It also helps you as the GM or facilitator with how to interpret the response to that action based on the die roll. Now, die are D4 through D12. One of your die is your approach. How you're solving the problem, depending on how it's coded, and you'll have to play test to find out.
You may want to say all the dice.
Oh, D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. Thank you.
For anybody who doesn't play D&D.
Right.
Platonic solids +1.
Thank you. But then you have your second die, which is your technique, which the gift is one example of a technique, but then you can choose to use a skill, which is similarly coded with the D4 through D12. But the combinations here are immeasurable with skills. So I could be forceful
there's
art.
55.
Yeah,
they're measurable.
But no, but they're
Sorry,
not immeasurable.
The interpretation. Hi, that word. I don't think you know it. I don't think you know what it means. But think of an example of like art is one of the skills. So I could use social art and critique a piece. I could evaluate a piece by being observant in art. I could be forceful art, one of Doug's favorite examples. Chainsaw sculpture, man. Splatter paint.
Yeah,
forceful
roll
art.
forceful plus art to make a chainsaw sculpture.
Or forceful art, I'm trying to break someone down in the borderland. And to, just break them down so I can maybe like, oh my God, I got to work on that piece. And they leave the jail they're guarding. I don't know. But we wanted to include that creative invention. And actually, you talk better about gifts than I do. Just how they work.
Yeah, so when you start with a gift, it always starts as a D8, which is about midway up the scale if you think about it, between D4 and D12. And each gift is actually 4 abilities kind of on a theme. So each gift has a free ability that you could just do that usually doesn't involve a dice roll. And then it has a self ability that just affects usually just you. And then it has an other ability that affects other objects or other people. And then it has a world ability that affects everything around you. And there's like increasing risk with a gift. Like the reason you wouldn't use that to solve every problem, because it's cool, is because once you get to the other ability or the world ability, you risk exposing yourself to the blight and drawing its attention. Because like, if you are using your storyteller magic with all the robots are going to be like, what the hell is this? And they're going to you're going to draw more attention by using that gift than you would if you're just using a skill. So the benefit of skills is that they're subtle, they're mundane.
Yeah, low risk.
The benefit of gifts is that they're really cool, but unless you're just affecting yourself, you're taking a risk when you use it of making things worse.
Yeah. And so the technique of either a gift or a skill is your second die. So at this point, we have 2 die that we're rolling so far. The use of gifts, when Doug talked about other world, is where the risk part comes in. Because there's a third mechanic within the game, which is represented by a third die called the situation die. So your situation die represents the exposure level. This is how where the blight of that current situation is aware of where you are and who you are. So the more attention you draw to yourself, the more the blight's like, oh, we got to put an end to this, right? So the higher your exposure level, and it's pretty much represented in game by a little reader that's on your arm. Think Jack Harkness kind of stuff, right? And it's little. Thank you. All right, one show a night. I'll be here all week.
You got 2. You got 2.
Tip your server. So it can either be in the white, which means no emergency, or it could be green, yellow, red, purple. Green, okay, you're rolling a D8 or a D10 at the earlier levels for your exposure. As it gets more severe,
and higher
like
dice
in
are
the
better.
red,
We should clarify.
Yeah.
The higher you roll, the better is kind of the,
so eventually in the red, D4 is your exposure die. Now why that's important is you have your approach, your technique, and your situation die. 3 die. Roll them. Take it, Doug.
weird transition.
Every time you roll, you just add to everything in the game to
Doug. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I gotta text it. Doug, what do I do?
You can only play this game if you have Doug's contact information.
That's right. Yes, that's
might
only with me there.
That might hurt us.
It's printed in every book.
Yeah, that might hurt us later.
This is my face.
Roll. Doug.
Call Doug for more info.
So
you see, that's the G in the RPG. It's just. Wait, no, that's not even.
It's not even. It's okay.
It's an RPD.
We don't
have
an
RPG.
Role playing Doug.
We don't have an AI. We have Doug.
That's right. way worse, but more respectful of art. So so you roll 3 dice, almost always 3 dice to do a thing. Sometimes you just roll 2 because you're really screwed. You roll 3 dice to do a thing, and everything that shows on the die that's a 4 or higher is a success, and then you count your successes. So obviously having a D4 is bad because you have a 25% chance of getting a success on that die. And having a D12 is great because you have like a 75% chance of a success on that die, I think. So the way that the results are sort of interpreted is if you roll all 3 successes, that means that you succeed and you get a benefit. That's like the yes and result. So you do what you wanted to do with the roll, and also something else cool happens. It's sort of like a critical hit. or it's like a critical success. 2 successes is you succeed. Good job.
Yeah.
You wanted to do a thing. You've done that thing. Whatever we've established as the result is the result. 1 success is like the most interesting result in a lot of ways, because either you succeed at a cost, or you fail but you get a benefit. So either you get what you want but things get worse, or you don't get what you want but something else gets better. Could be even unrelated to you. So like you might fail on your roll, but then an ally runs in the door to help. Like that could be a 1 success result. Yeah. Or it could be you succeed in whatever you're trying to do, but you injure yourself while you're succeeding. That would be another example of a 1 success result. And then 0 successes are you fail and things get worse. There's no null result, because I just personally don't like those in games.
Not compelling.
I hate the roll a die and nothing happens. Roll a die and nothing changes. I'm like, no. So there's no null result. You failed and it gets worse. If you get 0 successes. Yeah.
One thing probably worth noting about the 1 success is that you get to choose between that yes but or no but is how I usually end up referring to it. I don't remember what it's called in the book
it's like
at this point.
Succeed with a cost, fail forward.
Like now it's no plus and yes minus.
Yeah, someone gave us feedback that yes and it's yes plus, not yes and. Yeah. I actually believe it was Graham.
But whenever you roll 1 success, as a player, you get to choose between which of those, but generally your game master chooses what the consequence is.
Yeah.
Right, you kind of asked, do you want to succeed at a cost, or do you want to fail forward, is the way I put it.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes you want to fail forward, and sometimes, and you can say, like, I want to, you can say, could it look like this? I fail, but this happens, so that benefits my ally, and they get a bonus. Like, you could sort of negotiate what it looks like. But yeah, the player gets to choose succeed at a cost or fail forward when you roll 1.
And player is
it's a fun choice.
Player is the only one that rolls dice. GM never rolls dice from branch riders. That is printed multiple times in the book.
Because I think the last thing you want with a client is to be antagonistic.
Yep. You're being you're already throwing stuff at them.
Great way to be.
Yeah.
You're like, sorry, I win.
Right.
Therapy.
Yep. and even
you're
things
better
like,
now.
Like with,
but I don't feel better. Nope, the dice.
Yeah, dice. You gotta be.
It's in the rules.
Fake it to make it.
People are gonna start coming with weighted dice today.
Hey, who knew? My success rate's through the roof.
I need some weighted dice for therapy.
Stop cheating at therapy.
Yes, I love it. So, I mean, in general, that's kind of mostly the basics of how, and there's a lot of other things, like the Blight, they have a list of powers that you can choose from, because we build a lot of customization into the system, so you can build your own Blight, right? We can't call it the Build the Blight Workshop, for obvious reason. But
as much as that hurts my soul.
It wasn't our draft for a year, it was the Build the Blight Workshop.
Build the Blight Workshop.
And then we were like, we can't actually do
this.
It was awesome, though.
Yeah.
I've still got a version of that section of the book that's for myself. It's named that.
And anecdotally, it's the Build a Blight Workshop.
Yeah. I don't think Build a Blight is copyrighted. Just Build a Bear.
I don't want to risk it.
I'm just saying.
Well,
you can make jokes.
That's a fight I would pick.
Forget you, Build a Bear.
Oh. One step at a time, Woody.
That's right.
One step at a time. That pulls me up. Oh, but that's after the cartoon series and the live action.
So for mechanics.
Yes.
We talked about consequences of rolls,
right?
positive and negative. Oh, I love it. So one of the things I really like about the game is that when you're at a table, the consequences of rolls are visible. If you say you roll 3 successes, so you succeed with a bonus. So one of the bonuses you might get is you might get an edge. And an edge is a green card that says either prepared,
strengthened, prepared,
or energized, I think.
Encouraged.
Or encouraged.
Yeah, encouraged.
Encouraged. Yep. So those are meant to represent a lot of different kinds of things. But basically you would say, okay, you do this, but you're encouraged, right? So you fail, but you're encouraged. You succeed, and you're encouraged. So I hand you this card. So sitting on the table now, as the GM, you can see someone has a green card. That means they have a bonus. For negative consequences, those are just consequences or conditions. And basic conditions are yellow, and then advanced conditions are red. And so, like if a basic condition would be hurt, and then an advanced condition version of that would be wounded. Each one is in a pair. So there's a basic condition that worsens to an advanced condition. And there are 6 of those, 6 basic, 6 advanced, that hopefully cover almost all situations that you get into. But what I really like when I'm running demos later today and tomorrow and Sunday, what I love about the game is you can glance around the table, and based on the red, yellow, and green things, you can know how everyone's doing. You never have to ask, are you injured? Do you have hit points left? Do you have armor? Because I can see it at a glance, which is just really cool.
Yeah.
And that, we hit upon that late, but I love it. And I love that the yellow card just flips over to the red version.
Yep.
So
very simple,
very easy.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ways of handling the results of rolls and things happening to your character at the table, because I never have to ask.
Well, and the basics of how conditions work are, let's say hurt, for example. So that means you could either be physically hurt, emotionally hurt, socially hurt. Basically, when you have a basic condition, it means that if you're trying to roll to do something that might be impacted by that condition, you roll a d4 automatically for your situation die. So even if things are going well for you, if you got a hurt, sprained foot, broken leg, whatever, you're still in a bad situation. And when it goes to advanced, it's not that you're out, because again, no hit points, but it means that, okay, you can't move right now. You can still talk, yell at the villain, throw stuff at him, whatever, but if you got a broken leg, you can't walk.
Yeah, basically whatever got you the advanced condition, you have to stop doing that.
Yeah. So it's very narrative,
whatever it is.
The impact of what happens.
You can still do everything else, you just can't do that anymore.
So then once you, and there's an optional mechanic of how to stage. Generally it's if you have 2 condition slots on your character sheet. If it stages up from basic to advanced, cool. But if you have no more room to put a condition, you're out. Not unconscious, not dead. You cannot act in the scene unless someone helps you.
Yeah, you can sort of talk and crawl around, but you can't really do stuff. Yeah. You're done. And then if you have a friend who comes and uses their ability to stage down one of your conditions or whatever, you're back in. Yeah. But there's a point at which, if you have 2 advanced conditions, you're limping around, barely able to do things. If you would take another condition, you're just you're done.
Yeah, you're out of the action.
I feel terrible.
Yeah,
I just can't right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's basically the basics of how it works. So it's I don't know what else to focus on.
So the way edges work is they're like condition armor. So for example, if I just have physical armor, then I get the edge strengthened. And so the first time I would be injured by something physical, I just lose my green card, but I don't get a condition.
Yeah.
Until I get a chance to repair my armor, then I get the card back.
Correct.
So if I get encouraged, then the first time you try to hurt my feelings, it stings, but it doesn't give me a condition. I lose encouraged, and now I'm just kind of normal.
And it works the other way too. If you have a condition like hurt and you gain an edge like strengthened, you can just go oh, hey, can I use this to cancel out my hurt?
Yeah, as long as it makes sense in the story, you can take the green, negate the yellow, and get on with your life.
Because I could say, hey, I'm energized. Can I ignore that minor wound?
Yeah.
The GM could allow that. There's a lot of wiggle room of how you want to tell the story. Because we, again, to kind of draft it back to a lot of the original point, we are in Bodhana, we are very system agnostic. We do not say that any one system is the best system. Well, at least till a certain game is available. That any one system is the best one. There are advantages for different games for therapeutic use. So we wanted to give therapists, social workers, teachers, parents who are doing not clinical work, but I want to get my son and daughter, my children, to stop fighting with each other. Let's play a role-playing game together. Yeah, you can use that for capacity building. That's cool. That's not therapy necessarily. So we wanted to provide a system with as much adjustment and options that you can pull in so many things. Even the blight powers themselves are very targeted to do a certain thing. And the blight powers are very cool in that the power requires a called defense roll. So it might say, nope, you need to roll, because it's not just everything is, I'm going to roll a dodge. Nope, I'm trying to hit you with a certain type of attack, so you will have to roll a tools plus integrity, because I'm a gremlin. I'm trying to destroy.
Technically both skills, so that wouldn't really work
Oh.
out that way. But
Sorry.
you can say creative plus tools. That works.
Did I mention I'm in 4 panels today?
Yeah.
Just throwing that out.
All right, you burned. That's all right.
Thank you.
And
But
you're
so-
only on number 3. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
so knowledgeable plus integrity, knowledgeable plus tools. So it's a combination. If you don't have that skill or a low skill, you're already at a disadvantage. So it's called shots, not.
It's kind of a reversal because normally, as the player, you're choosing an approach or indicating an approach that you and the GM figure out. You're choosing a skill, so you can play to your strengths if you want, or play to your interesting weaknesses or whatever. The thing that blight powers force you to do is to roll things you might not want to. That like it makes you respond in a certain way. And it's one of the few times in the game when your options are just narrowed down. Like this, you must roll this because this blight is attacking you, and that's like an exception in the game. Where most of the game is like, let's figure out what we're gonna do and what it looks like and what skill makes sense for that. Cool, we'll do that. But the blight kind of narrows your options. Like, no, you have to use this, and it also adds a possible tactical sort of thing. We can say like, okay, this blight's power makes you roll forceful. We know that Bonnie's very forceful. And so Bonnie, you deal with that blight. You're going to be the front line person, and the rest of us are going to run around behind Bonnie. Or this blight, you have to engage with being knowledgeable. It's like an evil quiz show. And so we're gonna send Rich because he's very knowledgeable, and Rich is gonna kind of like tank this blight while the rest of us run around and try to deal with it. And so it opens up
bar trivia.
Interesting tactical options, I think, by narrowing your responses. Whereas for the rest of the game, the goal is to be creative and use your skills in interesting ways. Yes, Jackie.
Just questioning, like from a player standpoint, if I know I'm playing a therapeutic game and I'm being forced to do certain conditions, is that kind of like the equivalent of like, I have to do this stupid thing for my stupid mental health? What do you mean radical acceptance? I don't feel like radical acceptance today. Is that kind of like how it's going to feel?
It can be.
It could be depending on the therapeutic nature of the intervention, because some therapeutic approaches and techniques require that kind of active challenging. I call it gentle antagonism, or controlled resistance. In other ways, we found that sometimes people go, all right, I see what you're doing. I'm going to play along, because that safe space, that aesthetic distance, that scaffolding, if you will, that cushioning of the character and the approach, it's kind of like we're all in on the joke, so we don't have to call it, but we know what the punchline is. So that's an excellent question. Yeah.
And I was going to say we've got about 20 minutes left, so if we want to open it up to questions, this is a good time to do so.
Can I do one final thing?
You can.
Very briefly, there is a very cool therapeutic and storytelling aspect to the game called purpose.
Oh, yeah.
When a branch rider is created, you establish a purpose. This purpose is an essential question that you are trying to answer, something experiential that you are trying to achieve or be. So therapeutically, it's pretty obvious. I want to get the group to like me. I want to understand why the realms are separated. It could be a story convention or a personal. Now, the idea is that mechanically, if I encounter a situation that applies to my purpose, it's a free yes and, but once a session. And you then have to readjust your purpose. Because if you got a little more information or a little bit more solving of this, how does that change your worldview now? Where do you go next? And if you dialogue and keep a record of your character's use and exploration of purpose, you have someone's change progression dialogue. Mm-hmm. Great narratively, also great therapeutically.
And then in terms of mechanics, I really like a game that acknowledges when something's really important to the player. Yeah. Like that it isn't like, this is the whole thing that my character is about, and I roll my die and I fail. Like that is fair.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Sucks.
It's right. Fair in a sense that you're still playing the game and the rules are clear. But like, I like when a game acknowledges that something is important to the player, and so the player kind of knows when this is my thing.
This is my moment.
This is my moment. I can just sort of check the box next to my purpose and describe and it's only one roll worth of stuff, so you're not going to win everything.
Right.
Like, I'm going to describe how this moment goes great because of who my character is and what they care about. And I just like having that button in a game.
Absolutely.
I think I feel good when I push it. I feel good when players push it. And you can only do it once, so, you know, use it well.
There's no worse feeling than getting to like a climactic moment in a game and being like, I rolled a 1.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the thing I've built up for and then I just face plant. And I just don't like that feeling personally. So I put a win button in the game, a limited win button in the game because I like them. Mechanically.
So I wanted to make sure, Dixie, to mention that before we did Cuestiones.
No, I'm glad you did because it's really interesting and important. But yes, questions. You have one?
What's the debrief like?
I'm sorry?
The debrief. What the debrief is like.
Oh, the mission debrief?
Yeah.
I actually kind of, for my own edification, I kind of borrowed a little bit from Shadowrun to a degree. We actually have a nexus, which is like a central location that is where you're dispatched to go on your mission. There's a host of different characters there.
It's also where you live between missions.
Yeah.
Once you're a branch rider, you
can't
live in the
home.
nexus, you can't go home.
Well,
because
physically you can, it's just you're not supposed to.
Because if you go back to your family and they're like, where have you been? You're like, I'm doing stuff I can't talk about. Like, you just can't.
I'm a secret agent.
Right. So you live in the nexus now, and that's also where your missions
but I'd have to kill
start.
you.
Right.
Yeah, you can't even say that.
Secret agent, we live in the Old West. What are you talking about?
What is this, you know?
Exactly.
About James West?
I was just, yes! So, sorry, we had a nerd moment there. So at the Nexus, there are multiple staff who are part of the Branch Riders Academy and the mission teams. And honestly, the way that you can do debriefing any way you want. One of the recommendeds, I would say, and this is actually going to go into the Facilitator's Guide, which is a separate volume only for therapists and practitioners. So that way, again, we're not throwing all the therapeutic advice into the core book, because that would be very, for people.
People will try to do therapy on their friends.
Yes. Yeah. So you can do it as, Captain Norvik, for example, who's from the steampunk realm. He's the, tell me about your mission. How did it go? You failed on these fronts. Explain why. He's very no nonsense. Then there's Gossamer, who does R&D at Nexus. A little fairy who does all the weapons design and special whatever. And it's kind of just like, yo, did that wand I gave you work? How was it? Please tell me it obliterated so much stuff. Right? It can be, but more interested in the science. But again, you can do it as, how did the group work together as a team? You could do it, how did they work on whatever skills? How did they complete the mission? So there's a lot of ways to do that debrief within the story, or you could have no debrief at all. Totally
or have
up
it like
to you.
So there's tools in game, in fiction, for debriefing.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is an official debriefing phase of a mission.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessary. So your debrief could be out of game. Your debrief could be as players, as clinician, how'd that go, what, et cetera. Or your debrief could be in game and then low key looking at out of game stuff. That's kind of up to who's running the game and what.
Yeah, and
what you want to do.
therapeutically, I would say that our typical debrief choice as a mechanic or a mechanism for debriefing is script change, safety tool mechanic, because that uses highlight reels, going over, what happened in the adventure. So they call it a wrap meeting as far as the end. So that's typically our preferred. So that's what we do for, if you're talking about classical debriefing.
Yeah. And script change is part of Branch Riders. Like we recommend. We're
very
like,
built in.
These are the safety tools we recommend. Here's where you find a lot about them.
Yeah.
It's what Bodhana It's what Bodhana uses.
We use in all of our groups.
So it's
script
like
change.
If you're not doing something else, do this. That's it.
You mentioned the different advantages to different systems and different contexts of therapy. And I guess I was curious to hear what types of mechanics you feel have an outsized impact on the therapeutic potential, and also how that played into the design of Branch Riders with its, in terms of its swinginess or crunchiness, where you've got the step dice, the dice pool. What was it that made you choose that as the kind of golden mean, if you will? And what are mechanics that would serve?
That's like one of the best questions I've ever been asked on a panel. So we're asking about, insight. For those who didn't hear it, it was just an excellent question about, what choices of mechanics are integral to the therapeutic or narrative use of RPG, and how did that inform branch writers' design decisions? So I would say that according specifically to the Bodhana model, our approach is you start with a therapeutic orientation, you find a narrative structure or a mechanical system to replicate that approach. It's like finding an analog. So if I'm doing narrative restructuring, I would do more drama therapy techniques. So I would do more role play, less mechanical, less need to rely on mechanical. So I will say overall, the biggest factor I think that motivated branch writers was narrative. It is about creating a compelling story, creating an interesting story, because when we build a therapeutic intervention, we build the characters that are in that world, the world itself, the plot, the challenges. So everything in the Bodhana model is about the story. We don't even advocate in our model breaking in every 20 minutes to go, how are you feeling? Is everything okay? No, you do that when you need to, so you don't ruin the story, because if you built all of these elements in to the narrative structure and you know that those correlate to a person's goal or clinical objective, you have better immersion, which by default gives you a better ability for the person to engage with that content, using the story as a buffer, or in certain cases as a safe space. Like they would go, oh yeah, I know what you're doing, and this is awesome, and they fully dive into that identity. But that led then our resolution system, the fact that it was story based. It's about moving action and the story forward. Also the fact that the GM not rolling dice. Why? We want to keep this stuff moving. Because if I got to look up a rule, there are not many rules to branch writers. Let's be honest. Most of the book is going to be setting, creation of all those elements, because again, that is from the Bodhana model. And it was kind of fortunate because jokingly, I forget who the heck, I think I was talking to Josh. And he we made an offhanded comment of, we're kind of doing like the Story Path Junior system with branch writers, right? I mean, not completely, but there's parallels to it, you know?
Yeah,
There's some parallels. Yeah.
Similar concerns about the complexity of getting into the story versus getting bogged down in which number on this chart you found on page 47.
Right. It's yes and what would make sense narratively, which also reverberates back upon or bounces off of your therapeutic goals. That guides the entire process. What are we going towards? How does the story relate to that? So we wanted to give you the building blocks. So you would be able to, if you want, and they go, it's not going to work anymore. I could throw in whatever, you know. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay.
I could answer it a somewhat different way, I think, because I've given a few answers, like for example, having the having the sort of win button effect, also having no null result from dice rolls to me is important, and like that's a thing that just halts the momentum of a game.
And a story.
And a story. It's just like I'm the protagonist. I acted. Nothing happened. That's bad creative writing. Like you just that's not. It's just you'd rewrite that, right? So So the no null result. We also wanted like a flexible interpretation for the result of dice rolls. So we stayed away from a yes no of any kind. Because it's more interesting, especially giving the player the choice of failing forward or succeeding at a cost. That's one of the most interesting moments in a game, running demos and play tests. Watching a player go, oh, I don't know. Like that's. And we also mathematically designed the success system so that the most likely result is success. Because if you do the math, you can see that. But the reason for that is that we wanted characters who were very competent. So the question, if you're like a first level old school essentials character, the question is, are you going to screw up so bad you die? That's the main level 1 question, right?
I only rolled 1 hit point.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's a clip to share.
So
I can't touch fire.
And I'm going to run a Dungeon Crawl Classics funnel adventure where a lot of the characters are going to die and it's going to be a blast. But that's not what this game is about. This game is about being highly skilled. And then how do you address problems? Because the interesting question of this game isn't, did you do it? The interesting question of this game is, how are you going to solve the problem? And then there's still the total. I've had sessions go bad for people, where they roll a bunch of 0 success rolls that were mathematically unlikely, and they just get hosed and things go. That can still happen, but it's intent, because we had this conversation multiple times. It's intentionally tuned so that in the distribution of likely results, 2 successes is most likely, 1 success is second most likely, 3 successes is third most likely, and then 0 successes is fourth most likely.
Yeah. So it's
and that
less
was
chance
and
of
that was
it.
intentional.
Yeah.
We
Totally.
shifted that balance multiple times, but we decided to go with, no, this is a story about incredibly competent people solving problems no one else can solve. So you shouldn't land on your face most of the time. But occasionally, you should. And when you do, it shouldn't just be you hit your face, who's next? You hit your face and something happens that makes it worse.
And it should also be, you should fall on your face significantly less in a story than you do just basic things.
Yeah.
But how many of us have run therapeutic groups where we have that one kid who literally, I had a kid break down in tears because he could not roll above a 9 one night. He cried openly.
Like a D20,
yeah, he's like, oh my God, everything sucks. He's like, this is just like school. And I was like, dude, it's cool. Right? So, yeah, we're removing that.
And that isn't the experience we need.
Yes.
That's when you throw them across the room and teach them a lesson.
Black dice.
Yeah.
And it always rolls low. And so now there's this point whenever someone starts rolling low dice, someone just reaches in the drawer, pulls out the cursed dice, and just puts it on the table next to them.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So that does open a door for therapeutic work, right? But it's an accidental door.
Yeah.
Right? So it could easily derail what your real goal was because the system got in your way.
And in that case, you just don't make a roll to decide the outcome of that goal. Like well, as a default, if we do like bargaining, any kind of social skills challenge, if that's a goal for the client, I rarely roll a die because I want the client to demonstrate the behavior that's more important than them relying on whether the die is nice.
Yeah, how much more important is it to say, I started reading versus I looked in the drawer and then I looked over here and then I asked this guy this question.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Real quick, it's straightforward. You had said that the most likely was 2. What was the second most likely roll?
1. Yeah. And that's, again, broadly on average across multiple characters. You might have a particular character or a role, because the math gets wild when you're rolling different dice. It's past, I can't predict that 100%, but having looked at it pretty closely, the most likely is success. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Or people like, we got to get to our next panel. Listen, Rich, I love how all of us are like, boss.
So, when's it coming, boss?
I am so trained at Onyx Path to be like, we don't do release dates. So
I'm not going to give you a straight answer anyway. But I will say I have the manuscript that I just need to approve, and then we're going to send it over to editing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
that's where, yep.
That's where we thought we were.
The Bodhana Group is going to run a Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
For this, where there will be all kinds of fun stuff going on. We discussed whether Onyx Path should run the Kickstarter or Bodhana should, and we agreed that it's Bodhana needs to be out in front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because this is their baby.
Yeah, so we're going to run a Kickstarter as the Bodhana Group.
Correct.
With the support of experienced Onyx Path Kickstarter persons.
We'll be mostly.
Yeah, because I've run 4 and you've run 200, so we're gonna
68.
68. Okay. Yeah. So 16 times more. Yeah. Good.
Uncle Rich.
But mostly, also, you get the services of the person who runs our Kickstarters, James, our Kickstarter.
James Bell's amazing.
Concierge, who's a really wonderful guy and so helpful and friendly,
amazing.
and he's gonna absolutely eat this up. I know it.
Yeah.
So so that'll be the next stage you'll see, and we'll decide how we want to structure that. If they want to do the Onyx Path style of letting the text out during the course of the Kickstarter, or put out excerpts or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll figure
that out.
We'll figure how that goes.
And we'll definitely be promoting it in our Discord and on our Path blog, stuff like that. So there will be announcements because I love the raw power of pinging 4,000 people at one time.
Question on, so we actually did our first ever live play during this year's Onyx Path Virtual Con, which that video is still up, right?
Yes, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, so.
And we also, we've been doing the virtual con in June every year, and I'm pretty sure we're going to do it again this year because
Cool.
it's a thing that we started during the pandemic, and we just kept going with it because we enjoy it, and also our fans from all over the world get to interact with us, which is cool. Or people who can't get to conventions for any reason, be it monetarily or disability or whatever, so we can interact with everybody through the virtual con. So we really enjoy doing
And
that.
the Discord is the Onyx Path, right?
There's links on our website and
Okay.
everything else. I put links in the Pathcast.
Vibrant community of people that are fun. I kind of jokingly, it's kind of the speculation nation, where folks are kind of like, what's this all about? What's that? Maybe it's blah, blah, blah. And we're like, that's a good idea.
And then Branch Riders is a channel on Onyx Path's Discord, and that's an easy place to come talk to us.
Yeah, and eventually we also already own branchriders.com. We haven't put anything up to it yet because, again, we want to do this correctly. We don't want to just throw it out there and ruts. The game itself, we've been working on it for over 3.5 years because we wanted to get it right.
Yeah. And so we'll be sending the text to editing. At the same time, we'll start reaching out to some artists to get some lovely pieces to add to the entire representation that has already been put together.
Yep.
And then those things will show up on the Kickstarter page, and people can start to get an idea of, ooh, this is what this is all about.
And usually, like once we do a Kickstarter, there will be an estimated release date on there, and we're pretty good about hitting those. So.
Well, and also I think one of our goals was we wanted to make sure, because again, no names of any other product, but I've Kickstarted a lot of games, and I've waited. What's that Cthulhu 7 point? I waited a long time for that. Our goal was to get our system to be 95%, like 98% done. That way, once we went into that other portions, like we're not making a whole lot of changes unless it's something glaring. There are no changes we envision for this game, which means a quicker turnaround on the Kickstarter fulfillment.
It's closer to publishable.
Correct.
It's.
Yeah, I mean, if necessary, right after editing, you could just go, here it is, it's done. But of course, it wouldn't have all the bells and whistles that we all love when we get our role-playing games.
Yeah. Awesome.
And already all the artists would cry because they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, but we are very excited. We put a lot of heart and soul and a lot of love into this game. So really, if you are joining us for the convention portion, there are sessions still available. Check your tabletop events.
There's still probably 4.
Yep.
3 or 4 sessions.
There's 4, and every day there are 2 sessions running. So if there's Saturday is probably the most full, but
There were still tickets a moment ago.
Yeah. Oh, there were?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So please check out the system. Let us know what you think and talk up your experience. Take pictures while you're playing. There ain't nothing secret about our character sheets or our cards.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're right at 3 o'clock. If anybody has a short question, we can answer maybe one more past that. We're about at the end. Any final thoughts?
What's the DC of generalized anxiety disorder?
42. Isn't that the answer to everything? Ha ha! You see what I did there? Yes.
Okay.
Good end question, Mike. Thanks.
Something special should happen when you roll a 42.
I don't think you can.
You could roll a 4 and a 2.
Percentile die.
Yeah, but in the game, can you get up high enough to get a 42?
I don't.
Yes.
No, 36 is
If
the
you
highest.
roll in the percentiles, reading them differently.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This was an awesome.
Great question.
Yes, awesome group.